Hello and welcome to my first episode of That Was Just a Thought. And welcome to my channel. So if you haven't read the title of this video, which you probably have by the way, we are here today to figure out who's in charge of each region. Like the national leaders of sorts. I hope this could become a mini series where I do little theories and thoughts on certain things and certain franchises. But without further ado, let's jump right in. So first, let's start with Generation 1, Kanto. And this one, and the next few, were kind of hard to figure out who leads Kanto slash Johto. The reason I'm including both of them is because they share borders and they share Pokemon League, which you'll find out is very important to how I figure this stuff out. And for one, it is hard because unlike other regions, sure, there might be a military force like we've seen, but there's also no international relations whatsoever except from Kanto and Johto to himself. No other sign of them being connected to any other region other than like maybe a character appearing in another game. And they have no contributions to the world. That's what I mean by not having it. The only thing we know about the regions, both of the regions, international and national history, is that they were probably at war at one point, and even that is still speculation. And the reason, so for this, I gotta be loose. So I think the person that is in charge of this region, and you could correct me later if you need to. These are all my personal opinions. But the person I think is in charge of this region is Lance of the Elite Four, and then champion by the time of Gen 2. The reason I think of this is because he's a prominent character, and his cousin Claire is also very important to the Pokemon League. So they are very important to the region in their own ways. And it was the closest I could get to an actual answer. So you could correct me later in the chat. I mean, not in the chat, in the comments down below. But next up, let's move to Hoenn. The Hoenn region was also hard to figure out, but for this one, it was very tricky, and it took a few jumps in logics. At least to get the answer that this one is either Stephen Stone, or at least his father, Mr. Stone, is in charge. Either one of the Stones are in charge. Because of how important they are to not only to the story, but to the region. The reason I think of Stephen Stone is because he looks so dang good. And he also is the champion, which is usually most of the characters on this list, not all of them, are champions, or at the very least tied in with the champions very well. So, there's that. And the reason I think of his father, Mr. Stone, is because, unlike Stephen, Mr. Stone is a CEO of a highly big business of sorts, or at very least it's implied to be a big business. And he contributes to the region using his business. And yes, we are used as his errand boy in the games, if you don't remember clearly. So, the reason I think it's him is because his company is supposedly an economic giant. And he's not referred to as CEO Stone or Boss Stone. He is referred to as President Stone. That, of course, that could just be for his company, because companies, big or small, could be presidents. But it's the closest I could get. So, yeah. So either he is, or his son, or is in charge of this region, or someone we don't know about yet. That depends. It is hard to come up with these with any solid evidence that he or his son or is fine. Anyway, let's move on to Sinnoh, and yes, the champion. is Cynthia. But this time I have a good less leap in logic for this one. Okay? Um, the reason I think of this is because in Pokemon Legends Arceus, her ancestors Kogita and Volo, or at the very least theorized ancestors, are both in one way considered royalty. Because Kogita um, is considered a native of the land. But she also seems to be a noble of sorts, considering the way she dresses, the way she acts. It makes her seem like she's really, you know, like she's really important to the land, and she's a native. Well, that from what we know, she's a native of the land. So that's the reason I think that's a good enough reason alone for me, at least. But at Volo, seems like he is like also royalty from like an older civilization. A theory by I think Bird Keeper Toby, I'm not entirely sure, was that he was a time traveler from the past. I think that might be a solid theory, but you go to check that video out. Um, I don't know the link or whatever, so I can't say in the link in the description or below, and I don't honestly know him. But yeah. Anyway, so I believe that Cynthia is queen, royal, whatever they call her in our region. And she is in charge because of her bloodline, not just because of her rank as champion. Next, we have Unova. And, oh boy, the Unova games are, oddly enough, are the only Pokemon region or gen I've never played through. So yeah, I might as well skip this one, but I don't want to disappoint any of you. So let's say the leader is either N, because N was meant to be king of Team Plasma, or it could be Iris because of her entire outfit. If you have any better answers, because if you've actually played through these games, or if you know more lore than I do in the games, please comment down below if you see anything. Next, we have Kalos. You could say that AZ is king of Kalos, which he is rightfully, but he is also over 1,000 years old, so he wouldn't be recognized as leader of Kalos. Weirdly enough, and don't hurt me for this one. This one might be a little controversial. I hope it's not, though, because this is a topic that is explained regularly. But I think Clement, or a relative of Clement. You know, Clement Unbani, the electric type gym leader. Anyway, the only reason I think that is because his gym is located in the center of Lumio City, which is the stand-in for Paris in this game. And Paris, as you might know, is, well, the capital of France. And that's, I believe that's where, not the royal family, where the government building is located. And his gym is the equivalent of the Eiffel Tower, which is seen as a symbol of France. So yeah, I believe Clement is the leader of Kalos, or at the very least, a relative of him. Next up, and you're gonna love this one because this one is a theory that I enjoy very much myself, is Alola. Since it is hard to figure out because it seems to govern himself, but Alola is one of those regions that actually has no real world national counterpart, because the Hawaiians they have history, they have a bunch of history, but then they were annexed. And this seems to be a more modern society. If you want to know what annexed is, it's basically being taken over. Sorry. But so it was so what I believe is the modern leader of Alola is no one, because this is how I think it played out. Since there's no king of Alola or monarch in general, like there was in actual Hawaiian history before annexed by the US, I think the modern leader of Alola is, I think it played out like Alola was once a sovereign nation. Like it once controlled itself, it once governed itself without any help from the outside world. like maybe like trading from the outside world, but like that's about it. Um, but there but it was probably conquered slash annexed slash overthrown by Unova or whatever the stand-in for America is here. But I believe in the Pokemon storyline, Alola regained their independence quite near the time and events of the game. So since it is new, or at the very least they are independent more newly, there is no king, queen, or leader of Alola. There is no official government anyway, besides the Kahunas themselves, so there is no definitive answer for the ruler of Alola. But I quite like the theory and the lore building. You could argue with that, or you could agree with that. It doesn't matter. Next, we have Galar. And this one, I thought it was going to be easy. It kind of is easy, because I came with the answer really quick. But I don't think it's the correct answer, so if you guys have better answers, either comment down below or just criticize me from your screens as you're watching this. Anyway, don't get mad at me. I think Leon is the king of Galar. The reason I think of this is because of the imagery. In the games, he has his hat, which is in the shape of a crown, and he has a long robe or cape or whatever you want to call it, which is fitted like as if it was a royal cape, and you're like, how could he be the king of Kalos? He's not smart. That's the thing. Kings don't have to be smart or know their directions or anything like that. They don't have to do any of that. They're royals. But the reason I think Galar wasn't in total chaos while he was there, Leon only wants to battle. So that means Chairman Rose might have used Leon as a puppet head. I might go in more depth with that in another theory video, but yes, I believe that the Pokemon League used Leon as like a puppet head, so they were able to control a lot more than they should have. Next is the newest of the bunch, Paldea. Now, everyone, I love Paldea because it is a region that is full of story and good narrative. And it's a region that honestly is very interesting for me. And Paldea is based off of Iberia, and for the dummies out there, that's just Spain and Portugal. Now this one was hard to find out because the capital of Paldea is a school, and because the main building in Madrid is, I think it's a temple or a big building of sorts. I forget exactly, but it has a very similar resemblance to the school. But I meant the capital of Spain, not the capital of Paldea. I'm sorry. Anyway, Paldea has no official capital, unless the school is the capital, in which case the Pokemon League is the government building, because technically the Pokemon League is still in the range area where the capital is. Anyway, the reason I think of this is because what if the situation went a lot like how the Spanish Civil War went? Like, where there was a monarchy until a certain point in time, and then the people of Paldea rebelled against their king and queens, or whoever was in charge, and then they became their own independent government without any kings or queens. And this was fairly recent to modern times. Sure, you're probably not going to find much people that are alive from that age, unless they were born that year, whatever. But that was like less than 100 years ago was when that happened. So what I believe is that the people in charge are the Pokemon League themselves, and Gita, to be more specific, because Gita seems to be in charge of a lot of things. She seems to be in charge of all the gyms, and in which case, of course she's in charge of all the gyms because she's the chairwoman of the Pokemon League. That's what you might be asking me. But another thing is, she's in charge of a majority of the stuff, like the gyms, like I said, the Pokemon League in general, and is very close to the school. Like, in a way, they're very close to the story and the people in the story, way more than almost every other champion. So, what I believe is whoever is in charge of the Pokemon League is necessarily in charge of the region. But you could complain against it. This is just my thoughts. But hey, yeah. Tell me in the comments down below what theories you would want me to do, or what franchises you would want me to theorize about. And please like and subscribe, and that was just a thought. Bye.